Hi, everybody. Welcome to our review of the series finale of Star Trek Picard, Episode 10, Season 3. I am joined for the final time by my best friend in the whole world. Forever. This is the last thing we're ever going to do together.
Our disagreement about this show has destroyed our relationship.
Our friendship is over.
Hi, everybody.
It's Jason.
Skip to when I start talking if you want to feel good about the show.
I agree. That's good advice. That's actually really good advice. If all you want is to hear someone talk about the show in ways that will allow you to feel good about it, then just seek ahead to when it seems like Jason's doing most of the talking.
We watch the end of TNG everything. Wink.
Yes. Or did we?
I don't care.
Neither do I.
Wink.
But so the plot summary is Picard and the old TNG crew are on the Enterprise D as we left off in the last episode, and Jack is with the Borg, and Starfleet has been taken over by the Borg and is about to take out space.
Only the young people.
Oh, that's right. Only the young people, because of the Borg transporter thing that uses the transporter to biologically assimilate people, but it only works on people 25 years old and younger. And plus they Borgified the whole fleet so that all the ships are like linked together as like one
interconnected.
Yeah. So all that's going on. They figure out on the Enterprise that the Borg are operating from a location in the Great Eye of Jupiter. Mm-hmm. And that there's a big Borg Death Star in the Eye of Jupiter. So they take the Enterprise there. And
someone should have reminded them that the Great Eye of Jupiter is one long, unending storm.
Yes.
Comprised of winds of thousands of miles an hour.
And as you pointed out, is many times more massive than the entire planet Earth, which means that if you're the kind of nerd that cares about the scale of things, the scale of everything is completely wrong. That is not among my problems with this episode.
Not one of mine at all.
I give no shit about that at all. But
in fact,
maybe I don't have any problems.
Well,
maybe that's the case, Steve.
There you come to that point where we start to disagree. But,
is it possible to be a dark ray? If I'm a bright ray of sunshine, then can you have a ray of gloom? Didn't the villain from Rainbow Bright have a gloom beam?
Was it the gloom beam? The gloom beam, yeah. Or it was there. I think there was a gloom beam in Rainbow Bright, but there was a Jim Varney movie, Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam.
Oh, that's right.
So that's more in my wheelhouse.
But wait a minute. Didn't Rainbow Bright have a villain that hated colors and fun?
Probably. That seems to fit. Yeah, probably. I mean, who's going to be the antagonist to Rainbow Bright?
Didn't he also wear a hat and have facial hair?
It's me. It was me.
Anyway,
so the Enterprise goes to the big Borg Death Star at Jupiter. And does he look just like me? Did you Google it and he looks just like me?
Steve.
Did you Googled it and he looks exactly like me? And his name is Steve.
Yes, his name is Steve Bad Guy. Wait a minute, I gotta find
Steve Bad Guy.
I gotta find a picture of him. Anyway, keep going.
I never would have guessed that our Picard review would have gone off track over a Rainbow Bright reference. Anyway, so they go to the Borg Death Star at Jupiter, and Picard, Worf, and Riker beam onto the Borg ship to try and find Jack, because that's where Jack is. And also there's like a big Borg transmitter there that is controlling the fleet back at Earth. So they need to get Jack and they need to destroy this big Borg transmitter. So they get on the Borg ship, and at some point they decide they have to split up, and Picard's going to go after Jack and Worf and Riker are going to go after the transmitter. And Picard finds Jack and assimilates himself by stabbing himself with a Borg tube. And they go into a Windows Media Player visualization to talk out their problems. And also, meanwhile, the Borg Queen is back, the original Borg Queen, the Alice Krieg Borg Queen. Like, we heard her voice the last time. Now we actually see her, and she's not looking so great. And apparently she has not had, and this is, oh, hey, you thought I was pissed when they started bringing in Deep Space Nine villains. Apparently now they're also doing sequels to the end of Star Trek Voyager, because the Borg Queen is still kind of messed up from the end of Star Trek Voyager, when Janeway, injected her with the virus thing that, like, killed all the Borg at the end of Star Trek Voyager. So she's been kind of crawling her way back up since then, and using the assimilating of the different young Starfleet officers to kind of rebuild the Borg, and Jack is like the new Locutus, and yada yada yada. So that's all going on, and then oh, there he is. That's who you think I am? That's me.
I think that you would win Comic-Con if you showed up in that costume.
He just has a mustache, though. I'd have to shave my beard. I don't know about that.
Well, it's hard to tell. He's always got his hands up by his chin.
Well, that's true.
And he's always wearing a hat, so you wouldn't have to worry about that either.
I mean, I do have the hat part down. So yeah, Riker and Worf find the broadcast beacon thing, but then they figure out on the Enterprise, there's a problem. If we blow up the beacon, then it'll blow up the entire Borg cube, including our friends that are there.
Yeah.
So they're like, what do we do? What do we do? Do we blow up the Borg ship and kill our friends,
and they decide to blow up the Borg ship?
They decide to blow up the Borg ship and kill their friends. But after they shoot the thing and it's blowing up, Riker sort of sends up a tearful goodbye to his wife. No, he
doesn't. He just says it to his wife.
He says it, but she senses it, like, with her empathic powers.
Because finally her empathic powers pay off.
After
it's only taken
35
years, but
and Deanna, like, she's like, oh, I know where they're at. So the Enterprise and Data has flown the Enterprise inside the big giant Borg Death Star by this point. That's how they shoot the thing to blow it up. So Deanna is able to zero in on where they're at, and she goes, and by this time Picard has cured Jack of being a Borg with the power of a father's love. So they're all, like, out of the Borg's control and ready to go, and the Enterprise shows up, and they all get beamed up, and they all escape just as the Borg cube explodes. And when the
Queen goes, ah!
Yeah, the Queen goes, oh, I'm gonna die for real this time. I'm definitely not coming back anymore. And once she's dead, then all the ships that are being controlled by all the Borgified Starfleet kids, they all, come back to normal. And, apparently they had not quite gotten to the point of obliterating all life on Earth. So everything's cool.
They hadn't started shooting at the planets, at the cities on Earth. Yeah.
They were, like, targeting the cities, but I don't think they had actually started shooting yet. So everything's okay. Everybody comes back together on the Enterprise. Jack is all Locutus up, but he's, like, back to himself again. And then we jump ahead to 1 year later.
Yeah.
And they're parking the Enterprise D at the Fleet Museum.
They're putting the D down for nap time.
Yeah, it's nap time. And it's Geordi and Riker and Picard who do ending number 1, which is shutting down the bridge of the ship.
What did I say during the review? I said, shit.
You said, they're doing the Lord of the Rings ending, where it's this is
Return to the King all over again.
Yeah. Pick an ending. So they do the first ending where they turn out the lights.
Part.
No, I did.
I heard
when I was watching Return of the King.
I heard your internal scream.
You did. So they do ending number 1 where they turn out the lights on the Enterprise D, and then, by the way, Jack is a Starfleet officer now.
Well, you don't get to that yet.
Is it the 7 thing first?
First,
7 has a
TNG
7 has
goes night.
Yeah,
Second,
they turn off the lights. Yeah.
Data is in daily counseling with Troy, and Troy is sick of it.
Troy is tired of hearing Data go on about his Data shit. Because and she's Riker planning her vacation with Riker while Data's talking about how this time he saw somebody feeding a cat the other day and he started to cry, and Deanna's like, Jesus Christ.
Riker and Troy are planning a vacation. What else?
Raffi is going to reconcile with her grandkids because Worf did her a solid and let her family know that she was a hero.
For some reason, this relationship between Worf and Raffi works. How in the hell? I mean, of all the characters, what we know about the Raffi character and what we were getting sick of with the Raffi character, you have to give him points for having fixed that for this show.
Teaming her up with Worf definitely helped her a lot.
Raffi actually became a character that I gave a shit about. And that was because we didn't dwell on her being sad so fucking much. And pairing her with kind of a emotionally distant, well, he's not that emotionally distant, but, you know, supportive in the right way, tough love dude, like Worf.
Yeah, I think that helps.
Yeah, that helped a lot. Anyway, yeah, so Worf did her a solid.
Yeah, and then there's the scene with Seven and Tuvok. We forgot to mention. We forgot to mention
Admiral now.
Yeah, she's an admiral, and she figured out a way to use the transporters to screen out the Borg stuff from everybody and detect the remaining changelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a scene with Seven and Captain Tuvok,
who's okay.
Yeah, he's fine. He's not dead because they didn't kill him.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Seven's like, hey, I resigned from Starfleet. And Tuvok says, no, you don't. You're a slave. You can't quit.
After showing her the little hologram of
he shows her the performance review that she was getting from Captain Shaw before like the plot of this season started. And Shaw is on the verge of tears for some reason. But
he's not.
He's delivering. He seems awfully emotional when he's talking about, but the point is he's giving her this performance review and he's saying like, oh, she's a wild card. She breaks the rules, but you know, she breaks the right rules. And, you know, I'm going to recommend her for promotion to captain. So Tuvok says, haha, your resignation is not accepted. We own you. You're a captain now. And then we jump ahead a year to the turning out the lights. And then they go, and then they go back. Then it's Jack on a shuttlecraft at Space Dock, which has also been rebuilt. And Jack is an ensign now in Starfleet. He's been fast tracked because he's a nepo baby, which they do actually mention. Yeah. He does actually. They do actually. He basically says, "Oh, it was nepotism." It's like, good for you, Jack. That self-awareness will serve you well. And he's been assigned to what used to be the Titan, but has now been rechristened to the Enterprise. The Enterprise G, because the Enterprise is the only ship that gets to matter. You can't have any other ship that does anything important. It all has to be the Enterprise. And
every other ship-based show has been a fucking fiasco, including the one that's on your shirt.
Voyager.
Voyager?
Yeah, you know
Voyager,
what? I can't wait for I can't wait for the last episode of Discovery, where Discovery saves the universe, and they say we're going to rechristen this mighty ship the Enterprise because the only ship that gets to count is the Enterprise.
That's right.
So anyway, and Seven is now the captain of the Enterprise, and Raffi is her first officer. No conflict of interest there. And Jack has been assigned to her crew, and she says, okay, your position is you sit in the extra chair, because there's 3 chairs, and it's captain, first officer,
and this
somebody
new rank
else
that we call Deanna.
The captain's counselor or whatever. So she's like, there you go, you sit there, that's where you sit. And they fly off into the universe, and they do the thing that at least they subverted it a little by not actually by cutting away before we actually hear what she says. But
until they have their own show, Steve. Come on, let them.
God, please, God save us all. They doing this thing where like because they made it a joke in season 3 of Discovery, and it kind of worked with Saru, where Saru was the captain of the Discovery, and he had to choose like a catchphrase to say before, you know, and it's like it was kind of cute when they did it there, but now it's like they do it all the time, and it's like, oh please, like they even do it in the Strange New Worlds teaser where Spock is in the chair, and they're like, you have to have a thing that you say. It's like, can we just fucking drop this joke, please?
What he says is funny.
What he says is funny. Yeah, it works, but it's like, can we just please not keep having this be a thing? This is so. It's a.
What if it's
What
if it's a Starfleet thing?
It's a fucking dead horse, is what it is. Stop
What
beating the poor dead horse.
I like it. Hit the horse again.
Hit that horse again. Fuck that horse.
What if it's a Starfleet thing? Like, captains are expected to have a thing they say when they want something done, and everyone has a different one. And, you know, they're not a bunch of fucking automatons. This isn't, I mean, granted, it is a militaristic, but they're not the military. They're an exploration corps. What is it?
You know what mine would be? Mine would be to make my orders known and then pause for like 2 seconds and then look at the officer who was supposed to carry it out and just go, "Are you going to do it?" You know, and just be like impatiently like, "Hey."
First Starfleet mutiny that happens within the first hour. That the
Are you going to do it?
That the ship is launched.
But anyway, okay, so then the old TNG crew is at Guinan's, the 10 forward on Earth.
Presumably. I like the fact that they say Guinan's giving us a side eye. We don't even cut to her. We don't even see
Guinan's
her.
not there. Whoopi Goldberg was like, "Nope, I'm not coming back." Or she asked for too much money and they didn't bring her back. And if that is the case, good for her. Good for you, Whoopi. So they're at the Earth 10 forward and they have a nice drink and Patrick Stewart quotes some Shakespeare and then they play poker. Sorry. What are you laughing at? Please.
You know what? I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and it's like, Jesus Christ, he just fucking hates Star Trek.
No, I love Star Trek. That's why I'm so profoundly underwhelmed by all of this, because I love Star Trek. And this is not like what I'm looking for. I don't want to see Star Trek actors just basically come out and reenact old bits from 30-year-old shows.
When watching the show, I can't see Steve. We're just watching the show. I can't see him.
Right.
But I can hear him.
And you can
as soon as I see something, it's like Officer Pembrey discovering the bodies where Hannibal Lecter is.
Oh God. Oh God.
Yes.
Oh God.
Anyway, not off.
It's Jim Pembrey. I'll talk to him. Damn it.
Anyway, and they play poker.
They play poker because let's just blatantly lift from the last episode of TNG.
So now he's complaining about the TNG show stealing from the TNG show.
I don't want it to steal from anything. I don't want it to be, hey, let's just literally do the same ending we did for TNG.
Can we agree?
What a great fucking idea.
You don't want any more of these shows featuring the old shows. You don't want a TNG show. You don't want a DS9 show. You don't want an Enterprise show.
Ideally,
a Voyager show.
Let's get through the plot summary because there's one more thing we need to mention, and then I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Because there's the post-credit scene, or the mid-credit scene, I guess, which is Jack is on the Enterprise, formerly the Titan.
Actually, it's not even. Oh yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah. And he's in his quarters, like unpacking his bags. And who should show up?
Trelane. Nagila.
No.
The imprisoned space monster at the center of the galaxy.
No.
Oh, okay. One
Although
of the little
gurky
gurk things from the original series, the little gurk aliens on the Halloween episode of Star Trek.
That would have been something, and given how the show is made, it could have been any one of those and it would have been fitting with everything we've seen up to this point. But no, it's Q.
Who?
Q.
Oh, Q. Isn't he dead?
He sure is, except no, he's not. He's back because we're thinking linearly. So I guess this is Q from a point in his timeline before he died. So, anyway, if you had any emotional attachment to the farewell of Q in season 2, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
It meant nothing. He's back. Ha ha.
I could have told you it meant nothing last season on the show. But
I'm not making any argument in defense of the quality of season 2. I'm just saying, like if you did happen to have any sort of emotional investment in the ending of season 2, well, fuck you. So anyway, so that's it.
Before we enter into the next part of this review show.
Yes.
Place your bets, everybody. I think you've pretty much figured out who's siding on what. I don't think there's going to be a surprising upset. Probably or we not. Suddenly switch positions and Steve loved it and I hated it.
Probably not.
Well, I'll give you a minute.
Place your bets.
And place your bets in the comments.
Place your bets.
All right. Steve?
Okay. Yes.
I don't even know why I'm asking you this.
Please, it's like on an episode of Late Seating where we're reviewing a movie that like we've both repeatedly said is like our favorite movie, and then it's like, what did you think?
What did you think
of Citizen Kane?
Not only of this last episode, but of this season of Picard.
If we're talking about the whole season, I just want to remind everybody that I really liked episode 4.
Yes, we all know your undying love for episode 4, and that's it.
So you mentioned a minute ago about, how I would prefer not to have any new shows with the old characters, right?
Yes.
And that would be my preference. Yes.
Yes.
But here's the thing. If they are going to do legacy shows where the old actors come back and play their old characters like they did with, especially with this season of Picard, if they are going to do that, I would at least appreciate it if they would take the trouble to write new shit for them to do. Because I know because after I said the problem that I had with them using the changelings as villains for most of the season, people and then they revealed that actually it's all been the Borg the whole time, and I had a problem with that. There were some people in the comments that were like, "Oh, but you said you didn't want them to use non-TNG stuff. Well, now they're using TNG stuff, and you don't like that either." I would actually like it if they weren't reusing anything, if they were making up new shit from the beginning.
You don't want a TNG show at all, I don't think.
Well, as I said, I would prefer not to have a TNG show because TNG is over, and I love TNG, and I love all these characters, and I love these actors, but TNG is over. So why are we doing TNG again? And if we are going to do TNG again, why are we literally doing TNG again? To the point of even repeating identical shots. And I know it's supposed to be an homage, and I know it's supposed to be like, oh, look, there's a level of self-awareness to it, but it's still just profoundly uncreative. You're telling me that the big idea for season 3 we're going to give the TNG characters the farewell they really deserve, right? Because we gave them all good things, and that was almost perfect, but that was never going to stick because they were going to do movies and everybody knew that. So, we have all good things, but it's not really the ending. Then they do Nemesis, and Nemesis was a really, really bad movie. So in order to sort of undo Nemesis as the ending, we're just going to try and redo the ending of TNG only with Borg. And everybody's 30 years older.
They were not only undoing Nemesis, they were undoing season 1 and 2 of Picard.
Yeah, that's true. They were, but I am just not. I mean, let's look at the structure of this episode. You get sort of this couple of scenes to catch us up as to where everybody is. As far as like the distribution of the characters and what the situation is.
Yep.
Then we get a series of tearful fake out goodbyes.
Yep.
Where the character where Picard and Riker and Worf are beaming over to the Borg ship, and we get this scene where Picard turns to everybody else and says, "It's been an honor serving with you." And and it's like, we know that this is horseshit. We know that this is not the real goodbye. It's just bullshit. And then they do another one. I think they do another one kind of with I referenced they do the "What Dreams May Come" thing with Picard and Jack, where Jack's like, "I love being a Borg. I'm not leaving," and Picard is like, "Well, then I'm staying with you." Oh, it's like when Robin Williams finds his wife in "What Dreams May Come." But so it's and then when they get to the Borg cube, and especially when Picard finds the Jack and the Borg Queen, I mean, it's just like 10 minutes. Not all at once, but intercut with other stuff of just exposition of just the Borg Queen trying to explain her convoluted, stupid, evil villain plan in a way that makes some kind of sense of, and here's what I used the changelings for, and here's what happened to me after that, and here's why I did the transporter thing, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, oh my God, and then Picard has his conversation with Jack, and some of that actually is nice. Some of that works really well. Some of that you can tell is like a desperate salvage operation to try and impose some level of coherence on the Picard series, and specifically Picard's characterization in the series. He goes back to the, I joined Starfleet because I wanted to have a family, and then I found my family, and then I went to the vineyard to wait to die, and now I'm back and I rediscovered my family, and blah blah blah, and they're trying to kind of fit it all together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a valiant effort.
It works for me. It works.
It's a valiant effort.
I like the idea that he's admitting that he went to the vineyard to die. That he was just.
He said that before. But he said that before.
Around. True.
He said that before.
But now it means something, right?
Yeah, and did we mention Chekhov is the president of the Federation?
Oh yeah, Chekhov is the grandson of Chekhov.
No, it's Chekhov.
No, it is not Chekhov. He says, my grandfather said.
I thought he said an old friend of mine said.
No,
because he was quoting Spock. I'm pretty sure it was Chekhov.
He was not quoting Spock. It is not Chekhov.
He said there are always possibilities. He said there are always possibilities. That's what Spock said in Star Trek 2. Again, a Star Trek 2 reference.
He stole that from Spock.
as my grandfather stole from a friend of his. By the way, I forgot to tell you this. I can't believe I didn't tell you this. Did I tell you I found Terry Metalis in my house the other day?
In your house?
He was in my house. He was actually back here. I saw him looking at my Star Trek dolls, and I came in and he was going eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And I said, "What are you doing, Terry?" And he said, "I'm writing the next episode."
So you've hated this show so much that you are now hallucinating people in your home, because I know you well enough to know that you don't let people in your home, Steve.
It's an illustration of my point, you see. That feels like the writing process, especially when Terry's writing it himself. It feels like the process is that he has an array of Star Trek dolls, and he goes, "Who's going to be in this one? Let me see. Oh, Tuvok. Tuvok will be in this one. Who's going to be in this? Oh, Chekhov. He'll be in this one. But he'll be super old. I don't know if Koenig will actually want to be on camera, so we'll just have him do a voice. We'll say he's the president." Yeah, it's just, I said it when we first started watching it, especially when Chekhov was revealed as like the president of the Federation. I was like, oh, it's the most expensive fan film they've ever made. It feels like fan fiction. It feels like the writers of this show, who are obviously not without talent. Like, I've talked a lot of shit about Terry Metalis. He's obviously a writer with gifts, right? Because there are things in this season that have worked really well.
I'm going to disagree with you in regards to fan fiction. I've seen enough of it. And the majority of fan fiction falls into two categories: wish fulfillment, or I'm a character in Star Trek all of a sudden.
You don't think this is wish fulfillment?
No, this is not wish fulfillment.
I think this is almost nothing but wish fulfillment.
No.
I think wish fulfillment is exactly what this is. That's one of the big problems I have with it. But no, as I was saying about Terry Metalis and the whole staff, because he didn't write every single episode himself.
No,
he's obviously a talented writer. There have been things in this season, including in episodes where he is the credited writer or a credited co-writer, including even in this episode, that worked very well. you know, character interactions, particular lines, particular moments. There were a couple of really funny beats, especially with Riker and Worf, that we both laughed at. Like the bit where Riker takes Worf's sword and it's so heavy he immediately drops it and he goes, "Holy shit!" Like, that's a really funny joke. And I assume that was in Terry Metalis' script. So there are lots of individual moments and one single episode this season that worked really well. So he is obviously not a bad writer. So even though I give him a lot of trouble and I take the piss out of him in these reviews, I don't mean to suggest that I think he's like a fundamentally bad writer. I think the problem with this season, for me, is that he didn't come to work as a writer. He came to work as a fanboy. And the times during the season when it feels like he's doing his job as a writer are the times that I feel like it works. But unfortunately, they are a small minority of the running time. And for the most part, it feels like he and his staff are acting like fans and are working toward that kind of fan wish fulfillment instead of trying to tell a good story with these characters. So anyway, I've talked enough. Please.
Well, I'm a fan and I'm fulfilled. And if you're imagining Terry Metalis back there eeny meenying your fucking your figures back there, then I'm imagining that he's here giving me a nice hand job while I watch Star Trek.
You know what? That works with my vision of it too.
Sure. Is it perfect? No. Is it like everything that I wanted out of a TNG? No, it's not. But you know what? I had fun watching it. That was the bottom line. I had fun watching it. I'm getting too fucking old to get this uptight about Star Trek anymore. I mean, if it's bad and it's not entertaining and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out what the hell is going on with the characters and why should I give a shit about this, that or the other thing, I will admit I didn't engage and it wasn't interesting to me. That was the first 2 seasons of Picard. That was what happened with Discovery. I just went, oh, Jesus, she's crying again. And I just walked away from the show. I just walked away. And the same thing with Lower Decks. And, you can't accuse me of being this, I have opinions. And my opinion of this is this was fun. This was just a fun season. It was nice to see them get to do things. It was nice to have a more modern writer write for these characters without it being Patrick Stewart basically telling a bunch of writers what to write for dialogue for him, which is what happened in Picard 1 and 2, right? They gave everybody some stuff. Everyone had some stuff. They didn't go Data crazy. Once Data was back, he wasn't doing everything constantly everywhere. They literally told him, stay on the ship, Data. And he's like, but I always go down. You're staying on the ship, goddamn it. And he's like,
just sit in your fucking chair, robot.
Just sit in your chair. Finally, Deanna's powers paid off to do something beneficial. She's not like, I feel that they're having feelings about stuff. It's like Worf has been well utilized through this entire thing. This also didn't become a Worf show, which it really could have. I actually gave a shit about characters in the previous season that I did not give a shit about. Did not care what was going to happen with 7 of 9. Really didn't care about Rafaela after Picard season 2. Really didn't. But it was fun character writing, and I didn't mind, the member berries and all this other stuff. The Chekhov thing was confusing until I heard him say his grandpa, or maybe it was his dad. I can't remember. My father.
I still think it was him. I still think it was Chekhov.
It is not Chekhov. He'd be a billion years old. Not much. There's no way he'd be made president of the Federation. But
see, you are giving this show more credit than I am.
Yeah, because I had fun.
I'm telling you, this is an incredibly dumb show. And if this is the kind of show where if somebody said, why don't we make Chekhov the president of Earth? I'm sure they said, yeah, let's do that because they're dumb nerds.
I don't give a shit, Steve.
I'm not.
I really
know you
don't.
I know you don't. I'm just
care.
saying.
If at the end of the episode I had a good time and I felt like I was perfectly fine, and I looked at the thing and I said, "Oh," instead of seeing that they had ripped off the last episode of TNG for their poker game, and I laugh at it rather than "Oh God," which is what I heard you do 3 times. Then I was fine with it. I said, "Okay, fine." I threw my hands up a little bit with Q showing up at the very end because it was like, yeah, you fuckers really didn't like what happened in season 2, did you? You really didn't. I'm sure John Delancey was fine. Hey, you want some money? You need to say 5 lines.
And good, and again, as I have said a few times this season, good for him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I bear no grudge against anybody who made this show.
And I mentioned
good for
this
them.
to you. I said, if this is a soft pilot for the next Star Trek show on the Enterprise G,
I'm
fine with that. But you were like, no more.
Well, I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
If they do a Star Trek, they've been calling it Star Trek Legacy. I don't know if they'll do a show that's literally...
I saw that around there. I didn't know if that was actually a thing.
I don't know if that'll actually be the title of something, or if they do like an Enterprise G show where it's Seven and Raffi and Jack and Geordie's daughter, Sydney, and, and that's kind of the core cast and it's on that ship. If they do that and they handle their stories the way that Strange New Worlds has done it, where for the most part, they say, okay, there's a certain amount of nostalgia baked into this because we've seen a lot of these characters before. But other than that, we're doing new stuff. I would be completely fine with that. If it's a new show with new stories and it's not what this was, I think that would be great.
I mean, we had fun. I kept bringing up the fact that, oh, Jesus, it's like the Emperor coming back in that Star Wars.
With the Queen, with the Borg Queen.
In the Star Wars movie that I hate with the Borg Queen and the Emperor. Or, you brought up the fact that they have to fly into the Borg ship.
Like the Death Star and Return of the Jedi.
And pew something in the middle of it. Yeah. But I also like the fact that, Data has to, he said, I have let me trust my gut, which is the first time that anybody, like, you don't have a gut, Data. You're all machine parts and shit.
No, I have one now, guys.
But they let him do it. I let go of all of I will always have a demand, and that demand is, I don't care if you're smart, I don't care if you're dumb, I don't care if you're old, I don't care if you're new. Entertain me, motherfucker. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. This did not make me angry like with Picard. Like Picard, what made me angry about Picard was, do these people not know how to write something? Is it impossible for them to develop something that engages me and keeps me interested? And, what I was angry at, I'm not angry at the characters. I'm angry at the writers. No. I'm angry at the people who are making it, going, you couldn't come up with something that was engaging, that could tell a story over 10 episodes. I was the same way with season 1. You weren't there. You liked season 1, Steve. I didn't. I liked a lot of it.
I didn't. It has its problems. What I've said is I admire a lot of what it was.
All you needed to do was put a black tank top on Patrick Stewart, and that was a vanity project of epic proportions.
I would love to see him play Picard in a black tank top.
I'm in every scene, and then I get a death scene where everyone cries, but then I'm back alive.
Then I come right back. Ha ha ha.
Exactly. Ha ha ha.
I'm not really dead, just like you. Anyway.
But I liked it. I liked the balance of all the characters, all the episodes, decisions they have to make. They forced poor old Beverly Crusher to be the one to say, yes, let's kill my son, because they gotta. Because they gotta. I was fine with it. I was fine with it. I thought it wrapped itself up pretty well. It does get very exposition-y because we don't meet the final villain until the very last episode, where we knew it was the Borg Queen. Boy, she don't look good.
She's seen better days.
I personally like the ghoulish touches that they put on her. That she's been consuming. Reason, why aren't there any other Borg? Because she's been
consuming them. She's been cannibalizing them to keep herself alive. Yeah, that's a neat idea. The character design of the Borg Queen was fine. Was suitably gross and monstrous. I have no problem with that. I'll tell you what this whole season, and especially this last episode, puts me in mind of is the one good scene to me in Star Trek Nemesis.
I'm copying you.
The one good scene in Star Trek Nemesis, which is the scene after Riker has been officially, it's at the end when Riker has officially accepted his promotion and he is leaving to become his captain of his own ship. And he's saying goodbye to Captain Picard, right? And he's about to leave the Enterprise like for the last time. And I like that scene. I feel something when I watch that scene because it's Riker saying goodbye to Picard. They've served together at this point for like 15 years and they've been through thick and thin. And now it's Riker saying goodbye and saying, it's been a pleasure serving with you. And they're parting. It's the parting of the ways. What I realize though, is that the reason I care about that scene is because I've been watching these characters in other stuff for 15 years, not because of anything in this movie. And to the extent that things in season 3 of Picard have worked for me, not all of them, because there are, like I said, there are things unique or original to this season that I do think have worked. I liked Vadic, I liked Jack, I liked a lot of stuff that was introduced for this show. But the legacy stuff, the nostalgia stuff, the TNG character stuff, like there's a couple of moments that Riker has when they're on the Borg cube and Geordi calls them and says, "Hey, we're going to blow it up, so you better get back." And Riker says, I'm not leaving Picard. Don't beam me up because I need to try and save Picard. And if I don't make it out, that's the least that I owe to him for all he's done for me, right? And I mean, Jonathan Frakes sells that wonderfully. He does a great job with it. Really, nails it, sends it home. But the main reason why I care about that moment and why I buy that moment is because I've been watching these characters for 30 years and I've seen them and they've been established in way better stuff than this. And it's not because of anything in this show. This show has done nothing to make me like these characters more than I already did, or to make me more invested in what happens to them than I already was. There's a lingering investment that is there from other stuff, but it's nothing from this show. And what disappoints me is it seems like the creators of the show are fine with that. The creators of the show are like, yeah, we're just going to tickle the nostalgia bone. And we trust that, the real fans who have been with us all along, they know what the deal is with Riker and Picard, so they'll get it. And it's like, yeah, but you're not really doing anything as a writer if that's the choice you've made. You're not really telling your story. You're reminding us of someone else's story so that we'll feel the way we felt then now, And I just don't, I don't care for that. I don't respect that. I don't think that's not what I'm looking for in new stuff. It feels like a cheat. It feels manipulative in not a good way. And I just, I don't care for it.
Sure. Which writer?
Which writer?
On another writer's work. Which writer from TNG are you saying that you're relying? Because you're basically saying there are how many writers for the original series to establish the relationship?
A whole bunch. I mean, it could have.
Tons.
Tons. Well, I mean, it could have been. I'm not thinking of any specific moment, but I mean, there's so many writers in TNG that Jerry Taylor, Ron Moore, Michael Piller. There are tons of fantastic writers who wrote for TNG.
So I mainly going to be like,
who made up original stories.
what is the main difference between this, because this is a continuation of the same characters, right? And they have time, and I think they established the Riker and Picard relationship all throughout the series up to that point in episode 10 when he says, I owe him that, right? I think they did enough footwork from episode 1 to 10 to establish that relationship between the two of them. I don't think necessarily you needed to have watched all of TNG for that statement of Riker's to hit necessarily, right? I agree that there are some inside jokes right immediately after that. Worf is walking with him, and he says something like, what was it? I'm surprised we're still alive.
Oh, no, he said, I was, for a second, I was afraid we weren't going to die today.
We weren't going to die today, right, exactly. Which is a joke that only hits if you've watched the original the series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he ever says during this season, today is a good day to die. I don't think
he does. I don't think he does.
We do know that is established character. He does say that,
or does he say it? Or does he say it when it looks like they killed him before he?
I'm not sure.
The death fake out on was episode 3 or episode 5. One, I don't know, but I can't remember if he literally says that or not. But, but yeah,
we always have to admit that Worf is a little suicidal at all times.
He's a Klingon.
He's a Klingon. Right. So that didn't bother me, and it didn't bother me of all the other stuff, and mainly because I did my fucking homework. No, it's because
which is the most important step in enjoying any television show. You have to have done the homework.
I agree and disagree with writing things for if you've never seen the original show. I do agree and disagree to a certain extent. This show was made specifically for nostalgic purposes, because if you're bringing back the entire cast, it's going to be nostalgia no matter what you do. Even if you wrote completely brand new stuff and you ignored their history and you had to keep reintroducing stuff and reminding people of this, and you remember that time on Vagrant 2? Oh, do you remember that time on such and such?
Right.
It means nothing to the new person, right? It means nothing unless we're going to have a flashback, right? Unless we have a flashback to the original series, and then we may as well say, just go watch the original series. But they're kind of in an impossible situation. And the only reason I'm saying that is because the greatest Star Trek movie is what, Steve?
Star Trek 2.
The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Which is based off of something that happened in the TV show. Yes,
but uses that as the barest of starting points.
Mm-hmm.
For an entirely original story. It's a sequel, but it is not a retread of Space Seed. And in fact, I saw
it isn't a retread of Space Seed. That's true.
No, it's not a retread of Space Seed at all. In fact, I saw Wrath of Khan years before I ever saw Space Seed.
Did you really?
Yeah, oh yeah. And had no problem, not only had no problem like understanding it and following the story, but had no problem admiring it as a movie and being engaged in the characters and the story. Like, now when I saw Space Seed, there were parts of it that maybe I understood a little more. It's just like I know we've talked about this privately before. The big mega 2-part Avengers movie from a few years ago with Infinity War and then Endgame.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, if you have seen all of the MCU movies leading up to those, it's going to make more sense to you. The character beats are going to mean more. You're going to get more out of it because it is meant to be the culmination of a long buildup. But even if it's the first Avengers movie you've ever seen and you didn't see any of the stuff before, there's enough in that movie in both of those movies, so that you can watch it and you get it. And the big emotional beats that need to land will still land. They might not land in the same way or land as hard. Like it might not be as moving when, you know, he says, "I am Iron Man," and snaps his fingers with the Infinity Glove. And, you know, but you probably will still have an emotional reaction because you have spent enough time with Tony in that movie. And, you know, that he's been established as a character and you can invest in him and care about him. And for the most part, a few exceptions aside, I don't get that same feeling from this season of Picard. It doesn't feel like, it feels like it's pitched so directly, not just at people who watch Star Trek, because I watch Star Trek, but specifically at people who watch Star Trek and are just interested in seeing the old people come back and in seeing the old ships and just getting like a nice, being shown just a nice comforting nostalgic reverie of stuff that they like.
There is nothing wrong with warm soup, Stephen.
There's nothing like morally wrong with it, but I'm just saying creatively it leaves a lot to be desired.
When you're staring into a world where a state wants to propose the death penalty for people who dress in drag, once in a while, it's nice to stare out the window at the bleakness and get a nice warm bowl of soup.
What's wrong with the way Strange New Worlds does it? That's a nice warm bowl of soup. That gives me Strange New Worlds and also Prodigy. I'm going to throw Prodigy in here too. Sure. And also Discovery, because I like Discovery a lot more than you do.
Sure.
Those are all new Star Trek shows that, I mean, they've all kind of indulged in nostalgic stuff every once in a while. But for the most part, they have given me new Star Trek that tells new stories, or if it does repeat itself, it comes up with a clever new variation on like an old episode premise or something, you know. They're not literally just saying, remember that show you liked 30 years ago? Well, here it is again, which is what Picard mostly did. And I would much rather have new Star Trek that is making an attempt to be new and fresh and, you know, and entertain me with something that I haven't literally seen before. As opposed to, here's all your favorite actors from your favorite show from when you were a kid, and let's just watch them do pretty much the same shit that they were doing back then. You know, so that's I will say this: I had a really great time watching this show with you this year.
I did too.
I always looked forward to watching the episodes. I don't think any of it had to do with the show itself.
No, it's because we're best friends. We know exactly what buttons to push on each other.
Yes.
And we know exactly what jokes to make.
Yeah. So I feel like if I was just watching the show myself and then writing,
you'd be tyrannical. There'd be no stopping you.
It would be like this. It would be like, oh fuck, what am I going to say about this? You know, like that would be my reaction, because I don't want to just go off on a rant, you know, and just fucking trash it.
Oh wait, you don't want to go on a rant? Okay.
Come on. I'm being nice to it. If you knew what was in my fucking heart.
I know exactly what's in your heart. I have to hear it every time we talk.
But no, I mean, it would be tough because I would be just like I had a hard time writing reviews for season 2 of Picard, which was like way worse than this.
Oh yeah.
But because it's like, I mean, at what point, like, how many different ways can I say the same thing? You know, and at least watching it with you, I had something to look forward to as far as like actually watching the episode, because watching the episode will be a nice experience.
You had someone to speculate with.
And bounce things off of. And so the experience of watching the show this season has been terrific. And you know, while the show itself was definitely better than season 2 and certainly had its moments where I did legitimately like it for what it was, for the most part, the enjoyment of watching it came from the enjoyment of watching it with you and doing these, not not the
Well, see,
actual
I got the
show.
better of it because I actually enjoyed the show.
Because you like the show.
And I got to torment you at the same time. And those are two of my favorite things. Listening to you suffer through these episodes has been so much fun. Because here's the thing, I know what your problems are. And I think if I wasn't being entertained by it, if it was boring, or if it was just confusing, or the characters weren't behaving the way you're used to characters behaving, or if things didn't make any logical sense, granted, there's a little bit of that in here, but for the most part, the positives for me was, how did I feel at the end of the episode? And do I feel like I've been talked down to? Do I feel like, oh, it's so twisty and turny? The overall plot of this was a big mislead, which kind of makes me a little pissed off. I really didn't want it to be the Borg, but we got to see Alice Krieg and fucked up makeup and a rib cage exposed, doing absolutely heinous, ghoulish shit, and then she gets to die in a fireball. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't. If they had come up with brand new, here's one of the bigger problems. If they had come up with brand new things for this cast to do, we would be concentrating on the brand new things and not the cast coming back together, if that makes sense. We have the brand new things, and I think, yes, is this nostalgia? Yes. Was it made just for it to tickle my balls and say, oh, you like that, didn't you? And I'm like, yes, I did. I'm not saying that I didn't have problems with the series, but I thought it was perfectly fine. Am I going to watch it again? Who fucking knows? Who knows? Things get bleaker in this country. I probably will. I'll turn it on and go, oh, look at that. That's great. That was great. Look at Tribble, but it's got mouths on it. It's like, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing in the world, but I think, I remember watching Picard season 2 and just being I started watching, if you guys don't know this, I started watching Picard season 2 so that I could call Steve and talk him down, because I didn't want him to suffer through this alone, because I had no intention of watching Picard season 2 after my experience with Picard season 1. And I started to notice my poor friend Steve is suffering through this series.
He's just
but that was not the case this time. That was not the case this time.
We can definitely agree that this was a big improvement on Picard season 2.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, if they continue on and they do an Enterprise G show, they do something with it. Right.
I would that. I would really like that.
Yeah.
Because I like Jack. I like Jack as a character. I like Seven. I still feel like having Seven go back to Starfleet is like the least interesting thing they could have possibly done with her character, but it's done, Oh,
do you liked it better when she was wandering around the galaxy killing people?
I thought that was more interesting. I thought that was more interesting.
Okay.
And look, here's the thing. I'll make this point real quick and then we'll wrap it up because we're running long.
We'll be done. We need to,
we'll be done. Well, we need to be done. I tend to be the type of person who, like, I sort of assume that Star Trek shows should be centered on Starfleet in some way. Like the main cast should be Starfleet people. I mean, even Deep Space Nine, it was like about half of them were Starfleet people. There was non-Starfleet people too, but there was a lot of so that's just how I sort of naturally see it in my head. I assume like, well, it's, let's have Starfleet people in it. It'll be on a ship or a space station or something. But even though that is the case, that doesn't mean that I think that the best character endpoint for everybody is that they wind up in a fucking Starfleet uniform. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what they did with Seven, even though it wasn't that great of a show, and even though it ended up not really going anywhere all that satisfying, the idea of coming back to Seven of Nine like 20 years after the end of Voyager and finding her in a place where you would not have expected her to be, as opposed to, oh, she joined Starfleet and now she's got her own ship and et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's like, it's like all the people who said, well, Picard should have been president of the Federation. It's like, God damn it. Do you can we introduce any novelty and creativity into this, please? And so even though it didn't necessarily pay off in a satisfying way. The idea of, oh, Seven is off doing something completely different now. I like that idea. And then for them to sort of just drop that and be like, never mind, she's in Starfleet. It's a little deflating. It's like, oh, okay, But if they do a show with the Enterprise G crew, I mean, I like Seven. I like Jerry Ryan. I think she has, done the best that she could do with the material she's been given these past 3 seasons. So we'll see. Hopefully if they do decide to do that at some point, hopefully they actually make a new Star Trek show.
And hopefully Shaw is a robot who's a brain in a jar.
Or like a hologram.
Or something.
He's the EMH.
He's my sorest spot in regards to this season.
Yeah.
But, we're done. We're
done.
We have taken up enough of your fans' time.
Yes.
It's time for them to get onto the comment section and tell you how wrong you are.
Tell me how wrong I am and tell you how great they think you are.
Very few people do that. That's fine. Most people put in their own comments, which are very interesting about their ideas on that.
Yes. So, and in less than 2 months, we have another Star Trek show, Strange New Worlds.
Hey, you want to do this for that one?
I would love that. Do you want to?
Sure. You're my Star Trek buddy.
Well, let's do it. So we'll do this for Strange New Worlds.
I'm praying to God it's good.
Me too. Come on, Captain Pike, don't let me down.
Right, but I ain't watching Disco with you ever. Oh, wait, it's over, isn't it?
No, there's one more season, but it doesn't come out until next year.
Okay. How many seasons is that?
This will be the last one. Will be the 5th season.
Okay, good.
So, and then you'll be safe. You won't have to. You
don't have to watch that show again.
All right. Well, then that's cool. Then we'll see you all in about 2 months for Strange New Worlds reviews.
All right. Cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Everybody.